everyone, it's Ava. Welcome back to another reaction video. Today, we're checking out the Nothing Phone 3A and 3A Pro. I'm super excited to see what people are saying about these two phones and find out if they're worth the hype. So let's dive in and find out.
What is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and today we have a fun one, an unboxing and review of the Nothing Phone 3A and 3A Pro. Now, Nothing did send this out for review, so shout outs to Nothing for sending this out. And you're not going to get this massive box that is showcasing the new periscope camera. You'll see it right there. And the new rounded design, which is definitely going to be a little bit different. Some people may love it, some people may not. But definitely they have the regular 3A for those of you who don't prefer that design. But opening up, you're going to see right here, we do have ourselves the brand new Nothing Phone 3A and the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. And just like last year, Nothing is continuing their pretty nice boxes. You'll see we do have like the whole phone design on the back. Last year we had the dual camera, and this year it's all going to be about the triple cameras that are happening on both of these products. You'll see right here, we now do have an improvement to the camera on the 3A. And as the main box showed, you'll see we are going to have an improvement here, a massive one here, with a telephoto lens that upgrades to periscope. So this one's going to give you telephoto, this one's going to give you periscope, which is going to give you even further zoom. So this is a big deal for those of you in the mid-range space who do want a little bit more and demand a little bit more from your camera. Let's continue on. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and begin with the Nothing Phone 3A. Now, this one right here is going to be the lower option of the two, but they're not very different in terms of most of their specs, just mostly the camera. That's why I'm going to do both in the same video. Now, you'll see I did go with, or they did send me out the 12 gig, 256 gig model. You can also get this in 8 gig of RAM. I think it's for the Indian market. And you'll see over here that this is definitely just going to have IMEI stuff, which I did cross out for obvious reasons. But you'll see right here, very nice box. It shows the screws, it shows the glyph interface there. They have the whole camera on the front. It's just a different looking box compared to other phones, although not too different from last year. It's still kind of similar, showcasing a whole product picture across the entire thing. Now, if we go ahead and open up here, when you do get your phone, there will be a pull tab right there. So you'll just pull that. Then you'll just pull this up, and then it'll just kind of like slide right up out of there. And so let's go ahead and file this off to the side really quickly here. We'll file that off to the side. And you'll see they also kind of engraved the actual camera right there in the box. They did that last year as well with the dual camera setup on the Nothing Phone 2A. So just see all the way down to the box, the experience is just different for Nothing. So if you go ahead and open this up, it'll say, "Welcome to Nothing." You can go ahead and pause and read that for yourself right about now. And welcome back. You'll see over here we do have ourselves the volume up, volume down. It will showcase SIM card, USB-C, and it'll tell you to pull right here to power on right there. And then we also have the new essential key, which we'll talk about later in this video. If we go ahead and pull the phone out, you'll see here is the Nothing Phone 3A. So let's go ahead and just kind of like slide this up out of here. And you'll see, starting with the first one, we now have a triple camera setup. You'll see a little bit of red right there. You can kind of see the whole back. You can see the screws right here, Nothing right there. It will say that Nothing Technologies from London, England. Let's get a little bit closer. You'll see right there. It is housed in a plastic frame, but I am digging the new camera setup, the camera setup. And it's just clean, minimalistic, and pretty nice looking as well. Very different looking from most of the phones out there. Although Nothing's been doing these very unique designs for a while, but compared to other phones, it just looks different. You'll see right here, USB-C to USB-C, no charger in the box, which I'm not a huge fan of, but at least we have a cable. And then you'll see right here, we do have a SIM card tool in there, as well as some warranty information and stuff of that sort. So not much else in the box. I will say though, if you were wondering, they are pre-installed with screen protectors, although no cases in the box, so you'll have to order your own case. And let's go ahead and get this one powered up. Now, I did actually power this thing up and get these set up before the video just to speed things up. But the first impressions on this phone is that it is bigger. It's definitely bigger, a little bit less rounded in the corners, but still rounded. So it's comfortable, but bigger. At 6.77 inches now. And you'll see we do have the essential key right there. And we also do have ourselves the power button right there. This is still like the Stormtrooper color Right here you can see the white frame with the black buttons. I quite like that. You'll see bezels are a little bit more noticeable in this space. This isn't the flagship range. We'll maybe see reduced bezels on Nothing Phone 3 if we see that this year. You'll see front camera, and I'm just guessing. We don't even have any information on that yet. You'll see right here SIM card tray, and both of these do support eSIM now, which is a nice change. You'll see right there we do have our speaker grill, and if we take it off to the back, you'll see the camera definitely fills out that space a little bit more, I think, than last year's Nothing Phone 2A, which I'll show you here in a minute. Let me go ahead and show you that. So you can see we had the 2A right here, which looks like two eyes last year, but still cool. You'll also see the different design patterns at the bottom. They're a little bit different for sure. That red is a little bit more vibrant right there. You can definitely see it's a lot clearer looking. So I do like the 3A's look. It looks a little bit more translucent than last year, which looks a little cheaper if I'm being honest. So this one definitely feels more premium, looks a little bit more premium. Now let's get on to the 3A Pro. This one is actually a bit bigger. The box itself is actually a bit bigger. So 12 gigs of RAM, and there's still 8 gigabytes of RAM on the top level iPhones. Ain't that something? You'll see right here, they also engraved the camera. You see the new periscope lens right there. They engraved the whole setup right here on this phone as well. So sticking to the whole in sync, everything very clean and in sync with each other. They're doing a really good job at keeping everything very cohesive. You'll see once again, probably the same message right there. And again, I did open this one up as well. I'm just going to open them up before the video to speed things up. You'll see USB-C right here, SIM card, volume rocker. It'll tell you essential key. And here is going to be the more polarizing of the two. The phone that more people are probably interested in seeing, as it is going to have the bigger and big change to the back. And there is the big camera bump. It's a circle, but in order to get like a periscope lens inside the body, this is what has to happen sometimes. You have to get this camera. Now, the trade-off is that it is a little bit less ergonomic, but it's definitely still a pretty nice camera upgrade from last year's Nothing Phone 2A Plus. So if you were looking for like this kind of look, but you wanted a much better camera, this is going to be the year for you. Now, I kind of like how the Nothing logo on the 2A Plus was like inside of this shiny area. It's a little bit less easy to see on the newer phone, but still kind of retaining a similar overall look with a little bit more shininess because there's more space to put it there, versus now we have the shininess more in this area, up in here and up in here in the camera, but the glyph lights remain in pretty similar locations, although there is a little bit of a change in the design there. They're kind of keeping things pretty similar, but definitely looking still different from last year. So I like how they're making changes. This phone definitely don't look like the 2A Plus. It just looks like it's sticking with a similar like overall, aesthetic on the back, just very new versus that one over there. So I'm liking these two phones. They're actually quite nice for mid-rangers. On the right side, you'll see you do have yourself a power button here. You do have yourself the essential key, and that's pretty shiny right there. Plastic frame around here, so it's going to kind of feel similar, although nothing feels creaky. Nothing feels not durable on here. It feels nice. I will say I've been reviewing these phones for a while. The essential key is easy to accidentally press, so you're going to have to, get used to that. But once you get used to the feel, it does have a little bit of a groove. You can feel it. It feels different than the power button, but you're still going to have to get used to it because it's still in a similar location. I actually like where the essential key is. I kind of wish the essential key was higher because I'm actually going to use the power button more. So I would think Nothing should probably bring the power button down, move the essential key up a little bit, because I'm not going to use the essential key as much as I'm going to use the power button. You'll see over here, silver buttons on the left, and let me know what you like better. This gray version of the Nothing Phone 3A Pro, or the Panda Stormtrooper, whatever you want to call it, of the 3A. Which one are you digging more in terms of the look, the color? Which one are you going to order? Let me know down below in the comments. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the key specs that matter between both of these. Now, both of these do have the Snapdragon 7S Gen 3. So they're both going to be very nice in the performance department. These both do offer up a really nice change from the MediaTek chips from before. So when they first booted up and I first set these phones up, they were a little bit choppy when everything was getting warmed up. But once that happened, everything is super smooth. I'm actually very surprised about how good these perform. You'll see they're both clocked at the same speed because Nothing did put the same CPU in both of them. Of course, with both of them being 12 gigabytes of RAM, you shouldn't expect any different performance between either. So you're not going with the 3A Pro for next level performance. They both have the same performance. You're going for it for the better camera setup. So you will get the same 8 megapixel on the back on the third camera, which is going to be the ultra wide. But for the main 50 megapixel and the periscope, you're going to get 50 megapixel over here. This one's going to give you 50 megapixel telephoto on the left. So that's the real big difference. They both are coming with Nothing Phone OS 3.1, and this is going to give you Android 15 along with a lot of the newer Nothing Phone features along with some of the AI stuff. So it's a lot more clean, a lot nicer with the widget setup. We'll show a little bit more of that later in the software. But you'll see both of them come with 5,000 milliamp hour batteries. They both have 6.77 inch flexible AMOLED displays, so they're up a little bit over last year. Not massive, but still a little bit bigger. And you'll see 12 gigs of RAM plus 2 gigabytes booster. So overall, these phones are well equipped to handle everything you throw at them day to day. Spec-wise, they're absolutely great. There's some other key specs that aren't really mentioned in the About section of these phones that you won't even really notice until you start using them. But both of them do have really decent flicker rates. So if you have an issue with PWM and stuff like that, these aren't really bad at all. They do have actually 2160 PWM frequency. So they're going to not really give you those headaches and stuff like that. They can also hit 3000 nits of peak brightness. Now that's going to be with HDR with 1300 nits outdoors. And I did test this in pure sunlight and I was able to see it pretty easily. Not quite as good as flagship level phones, but these aren't flagship level phones. And they also get 800 nits typical. So that's actually pretty darn good. 800 nits is what a flagship phone would have been maybe 3 years ago. So it's still flagship level brightness. Now, one of the things about these displays though is that they're both 1080p. So if you do bring them really close to your face, you are going to notice they're not quite as sharp as some of the more top tier flagships. They're at 387 pixels per inch, but you got to be pixel peeping. Some of the more flagship level phones are over 500 ppi, so they will look a little bit less tack sharp up close. But they're cheaper than flagship phones, so you can't really expect 500 plus. They got to make cuts somewhere, and I think that's a good one because a lot of flagship phones these days already ship with the default standard at 1080 because most people don't even really need that extra 2K resolution. So it's not a deal breaker whatsoever, but just keep in mind 387 ppi is where you're at, and it's 1080 on both of these, 2392 on the other side to be exact. IP64 dust and water resistance is on board here as well. Now both the Nothing Phone 3A here has an in-display fingerprint sensor, as does the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. So that's how you're going to be unlocking these. They can do face unlock, but of course it's going to not be quite as secure as what you'll find on more top level phones. But I do like the fact that we even have this, and I kind of like how it looks. It's a really nice looking little simple minimal circle. It just looks different. I quite like it, honestly. Even though it's not like overly over the top, it still looks kind of nice. Now, these phones do offer up 3 years of software support. Now, that's going to be major software updates, 4 years of security. So you're looking at about 4 years of usage with this phone. That's not bad for a mid-range phone. And Nothing does bring smart updates to their phone, meaning they bring things that actually matter, like constant camera improvements. They listen to the community issues with certain bugs and things of that sort, and they try to bring things that actually enhance the user experience. This company is really big on the user experience, the software, and making sure things run smoothly. That's what they're all about here, while also giving you something that's not quite boring looking on the rear, not the same old every year. I mean, even though these kind of have a similar translucent look, I mean, look at the difference in the camera. It's huge. Even from last year, look at this camera versus last year, and look at the overall shape and design. They've even changed the back design. So that looks different, and it's also bigger. So that's one thing I really like about this brand right here. They definitely do mix things up. It definitely isn't that boring to see these phones. Actually, they're kind of exciting to see what Nothing brings every time. You know, I'm kind of excited to see the next top tier version of Nothing phone as well. All right, so we talked about the key specifications. We discussed a bit about the display. Let's look at the software. So I do have the Nothing pack on. You can go to customization here and you could change wallpapers, of course, but go to the icon pack and default will show you the typical Android colored icons. So if you're wondering, why are those icons all like plain and white? Well, that's the Nothing icon pack. I kind of like that. You can also kind of like turn them on or off like in the app drawer. So you can have them turned on right here like this, or you can just go back to customization and then hit icon pack and then turn them off. And then you could have them match the home screen, which to me is more cohesive. And it kind of makes every single icon look the same color, which is nice because, you know, some apps you can do icon packs, but then you get this issue where they don't all have the same theming. So if I go into here and I click the three dot menu up here on the right, in this Nothing OS, you'll see the Smart Beta categorizes your applications. So you can also go back to the default list if you like this. I tend to prefer the new categorization. I think it's a little cleaner. I actually kind of like this a little bit more, just simply because it makes it a little bit easier on the mind when you're going in here like, oh, okay, my stuff is in social or my stuff is in news and reading. And I get there might be some comparisons to a specific software, but I just like the way this looks in here. It looks very clean. Also up in here, you'll have recent apps and you could turn those recent apps off if you would like. If you don't like those recent apps being up here, it'll be called app suggestions and those can go away if those bother you. Going into settings over here, we'll actually take a look at them here now on the 3A Pro. They do have same software. So up here, you're going to find yourself a bunch of settings, including things like dark mode, night shift, glyph timers. You'll see over here, if we click the settings, there'll be more down here, including things like camera access, color corrections, NFC, and the list goes on. You also have a chat GPT section you can include up there. And then if we scroll through, you'll see a little bit more. Brightness toggle is right here, quite nice. And in addition to that, if I hold down here, I do have to say they do have some quite nice wallpapers. So if you click more wallpapers, you have a wallpaper studio where you can use AI to customize wallpapers. But the Nothing wallpapers are quite a nice pack. They're pretty simplistic and they're quite nice. They do add a nice flair to your home screen, if you ask me. Also, if you want some simple color options, you have those as well down below. No major issues. And if we hit this right here, you can also customize the app grid and stuff of that sort. So plenty of customization for your liking. Also, they do have some nice widgets as well. You'll see right here, we do have the Chat GPT widget, which is a great way to integrate AI. I actually have it right there. You can just quickly go right here and start Chat GPTing away, if you will. If we go over here and we hit widgets, you'll see clock, camera. You also see countdown, dates, media players, and stuff for Nothing X, stuff for, you know, the Nothing Ear. You'll see over here screen time, weather, and everything just very clean and cohesive. I do like how the software kind of matches with the vibe of the phone and then the wallpapers and the icon packs. I mean, it's just a really, it just looks good. Everything just kind of matches up so nicely. So if we go inside here, and we scroll down, you'll see some more for the glyph interface, some more software in there. And again, this stuff is going to be the same on both phones, some privacy features, more customization we talked about earlier, apps, notifications, battery. You can also see a charging assistant right here, and you can also see your maximum capacity and how many times you cycled this phone. So you can see, I'm just now reviewing it, so I didn't really cycle it at all yet, but you'll see the battery percentage and the adaptive battery, which is still learning my usage, but I'm not going to be too shocked about this. This phone has a 5,000 milliamp hour, so it's already draining very slow, which is a very good thing. You have some accessibility features in here. Most of these you'll find on other Android phones as well, but it's nice that they're here as well. And then you go down here to special features. You can try out some experimental features like support for AirPods, glyph progress. You can see the dot matrix tile as well. You'll see the RAM booster. You can go up to 8 gigabytes there. On some gestures, if we scroll down, there's even more gestures to play around with. You can go back to a 3-button navigation, and circle to search is also here on this software as well. So there you go. You got another AI feature there with Google Circle to search. And then if I go down to over here, you can power off verify. You can also clone apps. You have the app locker if you want to use that. And then if we go down, you have some tips and feedback. about how to use the phone. It's not overbearing. It's not too much. It's simple. It's fast. It's clean. It's just nice. Also over here, we have the essential key. And if I click that, this will capture screen content as well as recordings if you hold it down to record. And then in the essential space, you'll see things that'll store a memory of the things you've been capturing. So it's a nice AI feature that will, kind of like categorize, summarize things that you're seeing right here. And overall, it's just a nice place to kind of like gather all the information and keep like all your stuff in one space, like a single brain right here in this essential app. But it is in beta. You will have to sign in with your Nothing account up here and enroll. So you're basically, by enrolling, you are going to be helping Nothing by sharing your data. So be careful about what you put in there if you don't want privacy. You don't want your things being seen, because they're going to be using some of the data in here to improve this product right here, this software. So don't, personal private stuff, I would always recommend on anything when you're using stuff like this to keep that personal. But for just general stuff you're doing, like news articles or saving, some quick notes, some easy stuff, you might as well throw it in there and go ahead and have all of this consolidated into one brain. So I do really like how they're at least trying something new. I definitely really do like the software here. I think it's one of the cleanest out there right now, honestly. It might not be the most exciting if you want an overbearing amount of features, but that's not what you buy this phone for. You buy it for the glyph interface. You buy it for its clean, minimal look. And it just kind of puts the things there that you need. It doesn't overdo it. So that's quite good. That's my take on the software so far. I think it's been pretty excellent. I will say ergonomically, of these two, I have not been really enjoying the camera bump for holding this phone. It's kind of like, I feel like I'm always touching it, or like my hands, like, I don't know, I just want to like take it off like a lens sometimes. But holding it, I find I have to place my finger like in one spot to kind of like get comfortable. So I'm going to definitely have to buy a case for this phone for more comfort. Although these phones don't really feel like they need cases, because the backs, the plastic feel to them. I know the back could probably give you some issues if you dropped it really hard, but the frame, it just feels like I don't want to use a case. It's already a big phone, but definitely when you place it on a table, this one's going to lean up. You probably can't see it right now, but if I do that, it's rocking. This one much more flat on the table. As a matter of fact, there is no rock. So if you want the more aesthetically pleasing phone, it's probably going to be, I just bumped them. It's probably going to be the Nothing Phone 3. It's got a more traditional camera setup right there. It doesn't have any rock on the table. It's lighter. It doesn't get in the way. I much prefer to hold this one. Although I will say last year's Nothing Phone 2A and the 2A Plus felt a little nicer in the hand in terms of the feel. They were lighter. They feel a little lighter, smaller, a little bit easier to hold. So do keep in mind, if you do this upgrade, you are coming to a larger phone. I mean, you're looking for upgrades, you're getting them in camera, but you are getting them in the size as well. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the camera, and you'll see it'll tell you if there's dirt on the lens detected. The picture might not turn out quite as good. And we'll take a photo there. We'll take one there. And then when we punch in, it also has a pretty good zoom. Now, both of these phones actually do have really good regular zoom, because they both have zoom cameras. So you don't really sacrifice too much with the Nothing Phone 3A, but if you want that extra reach, you're definitely sacrificing here. But immediately what I'm noticing is just like the photos just look more sharp. They're just way nicer than they used to look. So this is the year to upgrade to Nothing Phone if you want better overall quality. However, you're still capped at 4K 30 on the rear. So no 4K 60 here, no 8K, nothing like that. But I would assume that that's going to be enough for you at this price range. In addition, we do have expert modes over here, so you can go ahead and use those. Portrait modes are also improved. You can do face retouching as well. You do have a night mode. And overall, this camera setup is just pretty simple, just like the rest of the phone. If you click down over there, you'll see exposure. You can change that. You can also change different quality. You can do 50 megapixels or 12 megapixels to save space. You can put the grid lines on. In addition, you also have these different modes right here within the camera: the original, the soft focus, black and white film, wide angle shot, and lenticular. So these different photo modes should help you get a little bit more creative. And in general, I just kind of find this camera to be a really nice upgrade over last year. Now, the front-facing camera, not going to be my favorite on the Nothing Phone 3A. This is 32 megapixels. It's sharper from the megapixel standpoint than some other phones out there. However, the actual results to me do look kind of mid-range, but they're acceptable. They just don't look flagship. So we shouldn't expect that though. This isn't flagship. At the same time, I think these phones are more about the rear camera upgrades. If they wanted to improve something, they could get a better front-facing camera and also add 4K 60. Even if it's not the best 4K 60, I understand to get to this price we got to make cuts. But still, we can probably see 4K 60 even at this price range. So when we open up the camera here on the Nothing Phone 3A Pro, you are going to see yourself a little bit more zoom. We got 6 times here, but it's not just there. That zoom camera is just sharper, period, over the 3A. There's nothing else to say. It's periscope. Also, 10 times zoom right there. And then you go 30 times. I mean, you can really get up in there. In addition, 60x. This one's going to cap out at 30. So think of these as like not like top tier flagship zooming phones, but like mid-range top mid-range top zooming phones. So if you were to take like a top zooming flagship phone and you made it like medium, like not like low zoom, but somewhere in between that and a pretty far zoom, but you're not going quite 100 or 200 times zoom, that's going to be this phone right here, the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. So sacrifices aren't huge. But having the Pro in the name on this one and still not giving me 4K 60, I don't like that. I do want to see that improved on the next model. Maybe the 4A will get that. But if we go over here to more, you'll see Expert. And we'll go over here to Portrait. That's improved. Also has the same face retouching modes. You have the macro mode on here, which I didn't see on the 3A. So let's go over here and we'll open this up. Was the macro mode available? No, I didn't see the macro mode. So this one has the more dedicated macro stuff going on due to the periscope lens. And overall, if you just want a little bit more than what that phone over there on the left can offer, that's going to be the 3A Pro. But you are sacrificing some ergonomics for it though. So you better actually want to use those features, or else you're kind of just going to pay a little bit more. And you're also not going to really benefit too much if you're not actually using the camera. So only get the 3A Pro if you're actually going to take advantage of the periscope zoom. And when it comes to video, these phones actually do have some EIS as well as OIS combined to give you some very stable video. I immediately noticed that when I was doing my video. In addition, while I do talk a lot about the zoom being the main reason to go with the 3A Pro, both of these do benefit from the fact that you do actually have the ability to squeeze more into the frame now than you did before on the ultra wide. So they are going to give you a little bit better clarity as well with the photos, which is something I definitely noticed. However, the only thing that I do notice is still can do some work is the actual furthest zoom on both can use a little work on the noise. It's still there at the furthest zoom, even in good lighting. So that's the only issue I have there. Now, battery life is going to be kind of the same on both of them because they do have the same chip, the same size battery. Here's some front-facing video with the Nothing 3A Pro. You can see this is at 4K at 30, so we're not gonna get up to 4K 60 on this device here, as this is not a top-tier flagship, but it's still pretty acceptable. It's pretty close to my face, so I gotta extend my arm. You got a shorter arm, you're gonna be pretty close to the camera, but if you like that effect, you'll like this. Overall, I think they could do better on the front-facing camera, maybe make it a little bit wider angle. In addition to that, improve it to 4K at 60. Even if it's not the best sensor, still I think we could see 4K 60 at this price point. So this is some video footage with the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. You can see Nothing really did a good job at upgrading the overall camera quality. on the 3A Pro, including having better video quality on the zoom as well as on photography for zoom. And also with their frequent updates and focus on improvements, we are seeing better overall quality from even this mid-ranger 3A Pro. Definitely going to be a little bit better here, especially on zoom over the standard 3A. So Nothing is claiming that this phone can last 44 hours on voice calls. So if you are just making calls, that's going to be 44 hours. 21 hours of music playback, so just listen to music. In addition, this battery right here also should give you about 26 hours of YouTube videos. And you are looking at about 24 hours of Instagram usage, 10 hours of gaming. This one also can charge from 1 to 100% in 56 minutes via the USB-C cable right here. In addition, 1 to 50 in 19 minutes. A 10-minute charge will get you 28% battery, and a 30-minute charge will get you 72% battery. So pretty nice battery for these devices right here for sure. And they both do have decent speaker grills. I tried them out. They're pretty loud for what they are. Of course, they're not booming like the best of the best, but they're definitely very acceptable for these phones. All right, guys, so let's wrap up the review here on the 3A series. Which one to pick? The Nothing Phone 3A. This one's going to be for the person who likes the traditional Nothing Phone look. They like the simple camera layout. They definitely want triple camera, but they don't want this big camera bump right here. In addition, they do like a large display, 6.77 inches. They want really good performance for this price point. And they're willing to live with some of the compromises like no 4K 60. And they're okay with not having a flagship processor because they like the software enhancements and everything that Nothing is doing right now. So this is definitely a really nice steal of a deal. Of course, the bezels are a little more noticeable on this lighter color because you have a light colored frame. But at the end of the day, once you slap a case on, you'll barely even notice. The Nothing Phone 3A offers incredible value, I would say, for sure. Now, Pro is for that person who wants, of course, this steel look. This thing is sick. The way it looks is just different. So if you like this more metal parts look, this gray is going to be the way to go. Also, for the person who wants a little bit more, they demand the best of the best from this series, but they also don't want to go way up in the price, but they do want to go way up in the zoom. This one is for you. It's also going to be bigger weight, so it feels a little heftier. It feels a little more premium because of the heft. But you're okay with sacrificing this camera bump being a little bit less comfortable to hold the phone. You might like that it kind of sits up on an angle, kind of feels like it's on a little kickstand like that. But it's really the color options, the periscope zoom. Both of them have great battery, and that's the person who would probably want to pick the 3A Pro. They want the best mid-ranger that Nothing can offer right now. So in conclusion, I think Nothing has another hit on their hand. Last year, I thought they knocked it out of the park with the Nothing Phone 2A. I mean, in this space, this is a very competitive space. You got to do something different, and they're definitely doing something different in this space. And you could see the upgrades are, actually, let's put these on the other side. The upgrades are definitely noticeable. You're going to better cameras, bigger displays, better software, more software years of support. They're definitely headed in the right direction. And I do think that it's going to take a particular person to want to pick one of these up. They're going to have to like Android. They're going to like simpler versions of Android. And they're going to want something that just feels different from everything out there without paying a lot of money. Definitely got a hit on their hands. So let me know your thoughts. Which one are you going to pick? The Nothing Phone 3A or the 3A Pro? Thumbs up if you enjoyed the review. Subscribe if you haven't already. And shout outs to Nothing for sending these out. I'm very grateful that they were able to send these out so I can get an early look at them. And I think they're pretty awesome. I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well and peace.
Oh, that was a long review video. Now moving to the next video.
What is your definition of happiness? A clear horizon. Nothing to worry about on your plate. Only things that are creative and not destructive.
nothing is better than iPhone? Or is nothing better than iPhone? So for starters, I would like to shout out and thank my friend Parker Burton. Some of you might be familiar with him, but he basically messaged me and just said, hey, do you want this phone 3A? And I said, absolutely, these things look sick. Now I am a lifelong iPhone user. Back in the day when I couldn't have a smartphone, I had an iPod Touch, so it's been Apple all the way through. I've never once gotten close to owning anything Android, but I've always been curious. I've always looked at these other devices and think, yeah, those look pretty cool, and some of those features are pretty nice. But I've been so dedicated and just used to Apple that I've never gone out of my way to switch. But I told Parker that, I was kind of worried that once I got this phone that I would actually like it better than my iPhone, at least the Android aspect of it. To which he responded with, see, I see what you're doing, Parker. I can see right through your Android agenda, don't get me wrong. That is gonna take a lot for me to switch from iPhone to Android. But I will say, this is a good start. In all seriousness, thank you so much to Parker for sending me this phone and helping me bring more content to you guys. Now, the Nothing Phone 3A is a mid-range phone. In fact, it's only $379, which is a lot cheaper than my iPhone. I'm currently rocking an iPhone 15 Pro as my daily device, so comparing the 15 Pro to the 3A isn't a very fair comparison at all. I realize that. This video is more of my initial impressions of the device anyway, since I still need to get some time under my belt with the 3A. So just know, when I'm comparing the two devices, I'm very well aware of the gap between them. I just literally don't have anything else to compare to the 3A, so it's flagship versus this. That's just what it has to be. So with all that being said, let's dive into my initial impressions of the Nothing Phone 3A. Now, obviously coming from iPhone, the 15 Pro, like I said, flagship, the build quality is going to be drastically different. The 3A, you've got some glass on the back, which I guess it was plastic in the past. I'm not sure, at least that's what I heard, but it is glass now, which does look and feel quite nice. The sides is plastic though, versus the titanium on my iPhone, big difference there. But I will say it's not the worst thing in the world. It feels pretty good. Honestly, not as bad as I thought it'd be coming from a metal frame. Overall weight and feel doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like a mid-range phone. It feels like a pretty decent smartphone. Obviously, actually fairly lighter than my iPhone, even though my iPhone is smaller than it. But again, that's just because of the difference in materials. So the build quality honestly is not bad for what it is. I believe the buttons on the side are metal. They feel metal at least, or some kind of aluminum maybe. I'm not sure about the Essential Space Key, which is a key specific to the Nothing Phone 3A. Everything else, like I said, plastic around the side, glass on the back. Pretty standard build construction for a mid to budget range phone. Now, the design of the Nothing Phone 3A, gotta say, I am a huge fan of it. iPhones have looked the same for years now, and to their credit, there's not much for them to change. In my opinion, I think iPhones look very good, very elegant, very premium. So there's not much for them to change, but that being said, it is pretty cool and pretty nice to see something a lot different like the Nothing Phone. Specifically, the Nothing Phones have this clear back design where you can kind of see like the fake internals of the phone. And I really, really do dig it. It's really cool. I love also the little red accent here. I love design aspects like that when companies do that, and it just looks really good. Not a huge fan of seeing the disclaimers in the corner down here. It just looks kind of bad in my opinion. I understand they have to do that. And then you have a little Nothing branding on the other side, which I don't mind that. That looks pretty good. Otherwise, everything else design-wise of this phone looks great. This is the white version. They have a black as well, and then a really good-looking blue too. So their colorways are nice, and they all have that little red square, which is, like I said, pretty cool. The camera bump on the back also looks pretty good. It's not as big as the 3A Pro. You can actually see like the circular portion where that camera bump would be if it was the Pro, but just the standard 3A has the little pill shape in the middle, which has kind of like a little like gradient as well that goes up, and it feels pretty good, especially like if you're holding it like this and your hand kind of like rests against it. It feels pretty good in the hand. Honestly, doesn't look bad, doesn't feel bad. So huge fan of the camera bump like that. I've always been, again, used to iPhone having the cameras off to the right. So again, it's just nice sometimes and fun to switch things up and see different designs like that. Let's cover the basic specs of the Nothing Phone 3A just for you really technical guys out there. You got a 6.7-inch display on this thing. You got dual nano SIM tray in this thing, no eSIM, just physical SIM card. You got an IP64 rating, meaning it's dust tight and water resistant, like water splashes and drops. You got the 3 LED light strips on the back as well as your camera flash. You got an AMOLED 120Hz HDR10 Plus display on this thing with a max brightness of 3000 nits, which is crazy. You've heard of Gorilla Glass, while Nothing phones use Panda Glass on their devices. The OS is running Android 15 with Nothing's OS 3.1 as well. As far as the chip goes, it's a Snapdragon 7 Series Gen 3. You got 12 gigs of RAM with 256 gigs of storage in this thing. You got a 50 megapixel main camera, 50 megapixel telephoto lens, and an 8 megapixel ultra wide in that pill camera bump. Video is capped at 4K up to 30 frames a second, nothing fancy there. Selfie camera is a 32 megapixel 22mm wide lens. You got stereo loudspeakers on here, a fingerprint scanner under the display, and a 5000 milliamp battery inside with 50 watt wired charging. Okay, so let's touch on the initial impressions of the OS. For one, honestly, I actually really appreciate having a fingerprint scanner back. I haven't had a fingerprint scanner on my iPhone in years now. iPhone has never done a fingerprint scanner under the display. I wish they would, because I honestly really appreciate having that feature. I mean, Face ID is fine. I like the fingerprint scanner. We lost that when we went to the X series and the XS, so it's been a while since I've had one, but it's nice to have it on this, and I really do appreciate having that. Anyways, the OS, the way it feels, and just how it looks. Overall, I'm running Nothing's icon pack. There was also an expansion that you could download on the Play Store, which I went ahead because I guess not all icons actually had skins with the default icon pack. So, but you can go to the Play Store and download a pack, which is pretty cool. That's very new to me. Like I said, this is all very new to me, downloading packs and other things. So, but it's very cool. I'm rocking the Nothing OS icons because I like how clean they look. I tried the initial Android apps as well, but I do think I like the Nothing icons, so I'm leaving it on there, as well as this really cool wallpaper that I found in the Nothing icon app, that like expansion app. They've got a bunch of different wallpapers that you can get, and I love this thing, especially like when you power up and down, it kind of like goes in sync with the color gradient there. Really cool. So I'm enjoying that aspect of it. I like cool customization capabilities, so I'm really liking that aspect of Android so far. Overall, everything else feels pretty good. And again, I understand this isn't a flagship, so where there might be some lag versus my iPhone, I understand, you know, the price difference there. So, but otherwise, I am appreciating most aspects of Android. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to, you know, where you go to find your apps. I'm not a huge fan of the notification center, if I'm being honest, because then I have to like double swipe to get to my my quick settings here. I'm sure there's a way to change that. I have no idea. Like I said, I'm a newbie, so we'll get to that at the end of this video. But so far, initial impressions, not the worst thing in the world. When you come from iOS to something like this, it is a little bit jarring in terms of like, it doesn't seem like it's quite as refined, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It does feel like there's a lot more possibility in front of me, which is a good thing. I'm really looking forward to this week, just learning the ins and outs of Android and just kind of understanding it a lot more to where I can better and more efficiently navigate it. Because right now I do still feel lost. I feel very new still. So, but I'm slowly getting there. I've had this phone for a little over a day and a half now, so we're slowly getting there. But initial impressions, not as bad as I thought it'd be. And I mentioned it earlier in this video, the essential key is what Nothing is calling this. Is the button on the side that's underneath the power button that is specific to the Nothing 3A, like I said. Now, so far, I haven't used it a whole lot, but I feel like I'm gonna use it more than I thought I would. The more I read about it and the more I kept kind of playing around with it and looking into it, I can really see the applications for this kind of button. One click on the button is gonna take a screenshot, and then you can add a note to that screenshot, or if you just hold down the button, it's gonna take a screenshot and then also start recording audio, so you can kind of just add a voice note to that. When I first read about it, I thought it was gonna be super gimmicky because most buttons like this are, but no, this one's actually pretty dope, and it's actually got some applications to it. And lastly, the camera. Now, this is where things get a little unexpected for me. I thought it was gonna go on here and be like, and of course the iPhone, like the camera on the iPhone is gonna be like way better than this thing. But that did not happen. That did not happen at all. And the few tests that I've done with the cameras on this thing, this has been really impressive. And in some cases, most cases actually, it looks better than my iPhone. Now, my iPhone does a lot better in color accuracy. I will give it that. This tends to shoot a little cooler. But holy cow, man, the details on this camera for, again, you're getting the quality of this camera for $379. it looks terrific. Like, it does a really good job. I don't know what they did with this thing, but it caught me off guard a little bit with the overall quality of that. Because again, I expected getting to this point of recording this part of the video and being like, and of course, yeah, iPhone all the way. No, I can't. I can say, I think definitively right now, at least, it's a draw. Because like I said, there were some cases where the iPhone's colors looked way better and the Nothing phone just kind of made it way too cool. So, and color is a big thing, especially for me. So, but details wise, man, it's honestly, there were some cases where it just blew my iPhone away. I don't know how, but the camera on this thing, initially, like I said, with my tests, I haven't done much low light. I haven't done a lot of tests yet. That's gonna come this week. But as of right now, man, nothing. The camera on this thing, if you're looking for a budget phone with a good camera, so far, this thing is delivering. Wanted to touch on some basic problems I've already come into. There are some apps that just refuse to work on this thing that I need for work, such as mileage trackers and then Slack specifically. Slack also just does not want to display photos or send photos. So that was interesting. I don't know what it is there. I've read that you can like clear cache and other things, and whatever I tried just didn't work, uninstalling and reinstalling. So that's interesting. I don't know why that was. And then same thing for my my mileage tracker. I couldn't log in. I tried multiple things, tried resetting the password, tried logging it out of my iPhone and then signing back in. It was fine on my iPhone, could not on this thing. So I don't know if that's something to do with Nothing specifically, since they're kind of newer, but those were a couple apps that were kind of acting up a little bit. And Google Maps. Google Maps was also placing my location like miles away from where I actually was. and then I would try to like hit go or like get directions and it would start it not even where I was. So Google Maps was a little glitchy for me as well. So those were the main things that I've run into so far on my initial tests. I might have more this week, or I might have less, or I might fix them, the ones that I've run into. As of now, those were my initial concerns, and I'm sure some of you guys in the comments could also help me with those issues as well. So overall, I have been extremely impressed with the 3A's performance, especially the camera. Like I said, I was not expecting it to be that good and even outperform my 15 Pro in, I'll be honest, most of my tests. Is my iPhone overall smoother? Yes. Between the two, I'd have to admit my iPhone still feels better. That's to be expected though. It runs and feels just more premium, and that's because it is. We're talking $1,100 phone versus not even a $400 phone. But let me tell you, when I say the Nothing phone makes it close, I mean it. Anyways, I'm gonna test this thing out for the next week or so, get really familiar with the Android flow and just see how it compares to iOS. But that is where I want you guys to come in. Like I said, I am a newbie, I'm an infant when it comes to Android, so I have no idea how to maximize it. So I need you guys in the comments, all you Android veterans out there that have been lifelong Android users, I need you guys to comment all of your tips, all your tricks, all your hacks of using Android or like the Nothing OS. Again, I'm kind of lost when it comes to all that stuff, but just things that are gonna make my life easier, make me like Android more, and just be able to use this phone as efficiently as possible. I'll be combing through all the comments and looking at everything that you guys suggest for my official review video. Who knows, this might be my first step into switching completely and checking out a flagship class Android device down the road. I know Parker's just doing this with his hands like, yes, we got another one. But for now, this mid-range device has got me questioning things, and I need you guys to help me really put it to the test. That's enough consuming, guys. Get out there, start creating. I'll see you all in the full review.
That was a great review video. Let's check another and the last video. Let's see what we have here. Okay, let's go.
We have new phones from Nothing, the 3A and the 3A Pro, and ooh, this is getting interesting. Time for a very quick history lesson. Nothing gave us the Nothing Phone 1. I didn't even note down the year. Brilliant. But basically, they launched this phone a few years ago, and it was really interesting immediately because it had these flashing lights on the back of it, which were a bit gimmicky, but like I say, interesting. And it had an incredibly competitive price point. Then we got the Nothing Phone 2, which was a bit more expensive. They seemed to be creeping up a little bit in price. It was a little bit concerning, but still a very good phone for the price. Then we got the Nothing Phone 2A, which I think is still the best looking smartphone on the market, if you go for the white version, because that looks like something out of Star Wars. Now we have the new A series, which is obviously the 3A. So we have the 3A and the 3A Pro. Now the 3A Pro Pro kind of, I think, replaces the 2A Plus, which was basically the same as the 2A, but had a slightly better camera system and slightly better performance, basically. They are mid-range phones. They have an incredible price. They also have a new button, which isn't a camera control button. It's far more interesting than that, and I think is really doing something that I've wanted for quite a while when it comes to AI, which I'll get onto later. But we just want to know, don't we? Are these better than the other Android phones out there? And are they better than the iPhone 16e? By the way, guys, if you haven't entered our 200k subscriber giveaway, the link is in the description. There's loads of amazing prizes to win, and, well, it's drawing to a close quite soon, so get involved. Okay, let's go through the specs and the pricing, and there are lots of similarities between the 3A and the 3A Pro. So they both have a 6.7-inch AMOLED display with a 120Hz refresh rate and 3000 nits of peak brightness. They've both got IP64 water and dust resistance, and yes, they both have the same glyph interface with 26 individually addressable zones. They've both got the Snapdragon 7S Gen 3 chipset. They're both running Nothing OS 3.1, which is based on Android 15, and they both have an in-display fingerprint sensor and facial recognition. They've also both got 5000 mAh batteries with 50-watt fast charging, dual nano SIM and eSIM support, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.4, and support for Google Pay. Now, the two differences are the camera system. So the Nothing Phone 3A Pro has a better telephoto. Oh, the design is different. I'll come on to that in a second. Everything else is pretty much the same. When it comes to price, these are the prices and specs. So basically, you can spend as little as £329 on one of these phones, and as much as 449 quid, which isn't very much at all. Oh, and if you're wondering about updates, both phones get 6 years in total, which includes 3 years of Android updates and 3 years of security updates. Let's start with the design of these two phones, and straight away, I want you to tell me in the comments which of these two you prefer. My favourite is this, the 3A. I just think it's got a bit more character. It's got that whole kind of Star Wars thing. I don't know what that is. It's kind of like it's got R2-D2 vibes. The Nothing Phone 3A Pro is just a bit more utilitarian, a bit more professional looking. It kind of befits its name, if you like. But out of the two, I would pick the 3A just in terms of design. They both have that glyph interface, which I won't go into in this video because I've covered it previously. It hasn't really changed from the 2A in that respect. And in terms of it being a gimmick versus it having useful applications, it sits somewhere in between the two. There are some interesting things that you can do with it, like, set the glyph to indicate how long a timer has left. Obviously, notifications, when the phone rings, they can flash, and there's lots of different things they've built into it, which is definitely worth playing around with. And then there's just the fact that it's quite cool, and you can set it, for instance, to when you turn your phone over and put it face down on the table, it just flashes. It's just done it now. Amazing. I just love that. As for the rest of the design, they are very, very nice feeling phones. They are basically the same. They're the same size. They're using the same materials. They have a kind of matte finish around the sides. Let's talk about the display very quickly. And this is where I do have to mention Apple, I'm afraid. They are fantastic displays on these two very well-priced phones, and they have 120Hz refresh rates because, like every Android manufacturer, Nothing hasn't backed itself into a corner with this and made that made high refresh rates a thing for professional, expensive phones. Professional, you know what I mean. Basically, you spend 329 quid, you get a better display than you get on the 699 or 899 iPhone 16e. Madness. And they've got a button. Please just hold on to your trousers for this. They've added another button, but it has nothing to... Well, it does have something to do with the camera, but it's more to do with AI. Now, don't go away. Don't close this window. Trust me, I feel like you about AI. It's incredibly boring and incredibly oversaturated in terms of smartphone features, but Nothing has added a dedicated button for an AI-based feature, which is, I'm going to use that word again, really, really interesting, and I will get to that later. The camera system is where these two phones start to differ, and I think Nothing has made quite a sensible, smart choice with this. In terms of the way that they've differentiated the 3A Pro from the 3A, I think makes a lot of sense. Firstly, they both have the exact same standard camera, 50 megapixels, bosh, simple. They both have the same ultra-wide, which is 8 megapixels, again, great stuff. The front-facing camera is different, so on the 3A it's 32 megapixels, and on the 3A Pro it's 50 megapixels. But the bigger difference, and the one that I think is pretty smart on Nothing's part, is the telephoto. So the telephoto on the 3A is a Samsung sensor, and it goes as far as 2x optical and 30x digital zoom. On the 3A Pro, it's a Sony 3A sensor, and it goes up to 3x optical and 60x ultra zoom, which may not sound like a lot, but it's noticeable in terms of the reach that you get from both of these phones. The Nothing Phone 3A Pro is just a bit further and a bit better. And yes, it would be great to have 5x optical zoom because I love that on the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the S25 Ultra, but there is the problem. That feature for some reason appears to be geared towards more expensive phones. So the telephoto basically is where these two change. Now, as for the camera performance and the quality of the images, as always guys, I'll leave this to you to battle it out in the comments because it's such a subjective topic. For me, Nothing Phone photos have always been very competitive. They've always been very good at their price point, and the 3A and 3A Pro are no different. I think the standard lens takes some fantastic photos, as does the ultra wide. The telephoto is definitely better on the 3A Pro. I prefer that slightly, a little bit more reach. 3x for me is better than 2x, put it that way. Once you go beyond that on both of these phones, and like every other phone I've tested over the last 12 to 18 months, it gets a bit too digital-y, a bit too AI-ified. I just don't find these images particularly great or particularly useful, really. But Nothing isn't alone on this. This is something that every smartphone manufacturer is kind of trying to do something with. And I just think as long as you've got a decent reach with an optical of 2 or 3x and that works for you, fine. How many people go beyond that? How many people need 60x zoom? But the overall image quality I think is very good in these photos. It's fast. Yes, it's a bit processed, but again, you get that on pretty much every phone these days. And if you want to tweak it afterwards, you can do, but straight out of the camera, I like these images. Now, I will be doing a 1 week later review when I will have spent a little bit more time with the camera systems on both of these phones. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done yet. But like I say, guys, let me know in the comments what you think. In terms of video recording, they both shoot 4K at 30 frames per second. So there's no 60 frames per second on either of these, which for me makes no difference because I never shoot at that frame rate. But if that does bother you, then that might be worth bearing in mind. That said, let's keep mindful of the price of these two phones. For most people, 4K 30 is absolutely fine, and I think the footage looks pretty good. But let's talk about performance and that button. Okay, performance, and yes, they both have an earlier version of the Snapdragon chip in here. Does that matter in everyday life? No, not at all. If you want stellar gaming performance and if you do stuff with your smartphone that really requires a lot of power and all that sort of stuff, basically you shouldn't be spending $300, $400 or $500 or pounds on a phone. You should be spending £1,000 upwards and getting the latest chip and being happy with that. These are mid-range phones, so you are going to get an earlier version of the chip in there, but it's fine. Qualcomm rather, make amazing chips, and I can confirm that because these both have the exact, basically same internals, they both feel buttery smooth, they don't lag, they don't crash, and they run Nothing OS, which I think, I've said this recently, that all the major Vivo, etc., all the major Android smartphone manufacturers, they have their own flavors of Android, and for me, they all feel quite similar in a very good way. They're all very good. The one that doesn't feel similar is Nothing OS, because it's such a unique take on Android, and in this case, Android 15. You can make it look like Android 15, and it can have the same icons and all that sort of stuff, or you can have the Nothing OS look, which is at first a little bit jarring and a little bit confusing. Working out which app is which is a little bit tricky, but it looks so refreshing. In terms of what you get in Nothing OS 3.1, there's a customizable lock screen now with widgets. You can rearrange the quick settings. There's a smart app drawer, which is basically intended to show you the apps that you use most often so you can get to them very quickly. In my experience, I prefer the standard app drawer, but your mileage may vary. That's pretty much it. But it is, like I say, the most interesting take on Android on the market. Then we have this button. What's it called? The Essential Key. Now, if I double press that, it takes me into what is called the Essential Space. Now, this is a very new feature for Nothing. Bear in mind, this is very much version 1, but the idea is, if for instance, I spot that camera over there, and I think, okay, I need to buy that camera, I can basically go into the camera app and take a photo with the Essential Key. So press the Essential Key. What that does is give me this little interface here where I can say, buy this camera next Friday. Press that button. That puts it into my Essential Space. If I go into my Essential Space, which you can do by going into the app or just double pressing the new button, we can see in my memory bank here, we have that photo of the Sony camera, and what it's doing, it's using AI to summarize that image. So it's looking at it and picking out anything that it might need to pick out, and also it's taking the text that I put in and it's going to do something with that. So it's put in next Friday as the date that it needs to be completed. And if I go into my essential space again, I've got a whole bunch of to-dos that I've created just by using that essential key to take photos of things. You can do it with websites as well. So if I'm browsing the web, for instance, and I think, ooh, this looks like a really nice little guide for buying a new pair of headphones. Let's keep an eye on that. I can use the essential key just to hold down and press like that. I can talk into it, probably just taking what I've just said, but you can dictate to it as well. And it puts everything into this space where it attempts to organize all of the things that you capture throughout the day into a manageable list of to-do items and memories and collections, basically. It very much feels like a version 1. Like I say, it's a bit beatery, I think. I wish, for instance, you could manually add to-dos to the previous memories that you've captured. You can't do that. However, this is interesting. I've probably talked more about the essential space than I have collectively about all of the AI features that are in every single smartphone at the moment, because they're all the same thing. It's, you know, image manipulation, it's help writing text messages, it's summarizing notes, it's all this kind of stuff, which is very, very impressive, but in reality, you don't have a lot of use for it. I think the essential space has a lot of promise. I think they can do a lot more with it, but I'm glad they've given us access to this. And the fact that you can get the early access to new features as they come out is fantastic. You don't have to be a beta tester. It's interesting. There's that word again. And I can see myself using the essential space just to capture things and have somewhere to store it where I can go back, and it's used AI to pick things out, but it's not invasive AI. It's really simple. I love this Nothing. I just want to see it developed a little bit further. I appreciate this is version 1, but imagine what version 2 could be like. It's great, and I think it does deserve that button. This Apple, sorry, I keep bringing Apple back up, don't I? This is what that button, that additional button should be for. Not for taking photos, because we're all used to pressing the shutter button on the display. What we've never had, and some people may correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've ever had a smartphone where you can have a dedicated button for recording stuff and having that stuff go into a little space and then have AI analyze that stuff and turn it into useful to-do lists. And it's a really smart idea. Very simple conclusion today, guys. These are wonderful phones and they will take some beating in 2025. 329 quid for the 3A. Even the Pro is just £449, which absolutely trounces the iPhone 16e in terms of value. And even against the Android competition, which is a bit stronger, these are still incredibly tempting, mainly because, well, one, they've got the specs to back it up, but two, look at them. They are so characterful. They've got great camera systems, and they have this button, which is finally doing something interesting with AI. Nothing, you have done it again. I do want to spend a bit more time with them, which is why I've got that 1 week later review coming up in a week's time. So make sure you hit that subscribe button not to miss that, and turn on the bell, etc. My fandom of Nothing phones, it continues, guys. I'm so impressed with what they're doing in this industry. Please never change Nothing. You know what I mean? Please, Nothing, please never change.
That was a great review video, and I appreciate the feedback, even if it was for nothing, I guess. Anyway, that's all for today. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.